Thank you all for coming. I'm very honored to be here in Karachi, the City of Lights, and I appreciate your hospitality. I thought what I would do is offer some scattered remarks on leading issues of the day. And first, I will start with the trade war, which I see as the single most important issue facing the global economy. The trade war, as I see it, was fairly inevitable. That is, globalization had expanded more rapidly than the trust was expanding to support it. So what we are seeing is globalization being run in reverse. This is a major reason, perhaps the major reason, why Pakistani economic growth is slowing down. It is a mistake, in my view, to identify the trade war with President Trump, and it is also a mistake to think that tariffs are the central issue in the trade war. They are not. What fundamentally is going on is a decoupling of the American and Chinese economies, because one day people woke up and realized the trust simply was not there. Now, what will happen as a result of the trade war? I don't actually think there will be much of an agreement between America and China. I would not be surprised if, as a result of the October talks, America and China had a short-run agreement. That is entirely possible. Trump would like that. I believe China wants an agreement now. But I think if the agreement were signed before the ink on the paper would be dry, both sides would be violating it. So in that sense, whether there is a short-run agreement, I don't see as the most important question. I also don't think it's obvious who has the stronger position in the current trade war. You frequently will hear it argued that Trump needs a deal for re-election. I believe this is untrue. Most American incumbent presidents who have a good economy are re-elected. Most American voters don't care about the trade war. They couldn't tell you what the trade war is. The people who really care are farmers in the Midwest. That is a major issue for Trump. But many of the states where those farmers live probably will vote for Trump anyway. I would say, as a general principle, what you read in media concerning the trade war is not reliable. American media in particular are not reliable on the trade war. What I find happening is people already have made up their minds about America, President Trump, China, and that then predicts what they have to say about the trade war. So when people write about the trade war, more often than not, they're writing about themselves. They're not actually writing about the trade war. I view China as being in a somewhat more vulnerable position than many observers realize. So China now is announcing it won't be hitting the target for 6% economic growth. Arguably, they're in the range or headed to 3 or 4% economic growth. That's not terrible, but it's a far cry from the 7%, 8%, 10% growth they had been enjoying. If you look at the position of Xi, typically he is portrayed as having vanquished all of his enemies, as having absolute power. He will reign forever. And in China, simply everyone looks up to him. There's another way of looking at the situation, namely that in some ways he is very vulnerable. He is the first Chinese leader in a long time who actually has the chance to fail. I wouldn't predict that he will fail, but if you think about the crisis in Hong Kong and the crisis with the United States, with Trump and the trade war, there are two major, truly major issues where Xi could fail. And that is a possibility on the table that has not been the case for China in recent memory, namely that a leader could, in such a major, public, and visible way, fail. That is one reason, I think, why he wants a deal now, simply to de-escalate the issue. I don't think anyone can tell you for sure what will happen due to the trade war. My best guess is simply it will drag on more or less forever. for the rest of my lifetime. It will be painful. It will outlast particular American and Chinese leaders. It will never be settled, and it will bring a fair amount of collateral damage to other economies, including Pakistan. Some general comments on the United States. I think the United States economy right now is fairly healthy, nothing very impressive. I don't see the evidence for a major recession coming. I think the talk you read about this is, again, often simply dislike of President Trump. I am myself not at all a Trump supporter, but it's very important when reading predictions, even of well-known economists, to separate out what is politics and what is analysis. Most of the time, recessions don't come. The labor market is still healthy. If you look at the SOM index, what has been happening to unemployment in the recent past, things seem to be okay. Consumer confidence has mostly been fairly strong. Investment is sluggish. That's a weak point. There just is not an overwhelming case for believing there will be an American recession. That strengthens the hand of Trump somewhat. If I think about internal politics in my country, they've changed a great deal over the last 15 years. There is no time in my adult life when I can remember a year where Americans cared less about foreign policy. So whatever problems or good developments are happening in this part of the world, my countrymen, even often the leaders of my country, don't know about them, don't necessarily care about them. People in different parts of the world, I think, are viewing the world in different ways, as has not been the case for a very, very long time. The general tendency I see, however, I think America over time is becoming somewhat more pro-India. I don't think they're becoming more anti-Pakistan, however. I think more and more indifference is setting in, and there's a sense there's some problems in a region out there, and no one knows what to do about it. If you think about the conflict in Afghanistan, there are now soldiers fighting in that war who were not even born when the 9/11 attacks happened. And that, to me, is quite astonishing. So I think America, we're making more noise against each other than ever before. We look more polarized, we're more emotional, we're emotionally hurt at losing a lot of status. I think we've become a more hypocritical, less honest country. But, if you look at the economy, actually we're doing fine. So I think life in America simply will continue. I would just say, don't expect too much from us. We're looking inwards. So it is not, for me, my proudest moment as an American to look at my government today, but I think we are muddling through. And when you read reports, we're turning into fascism or democracy is failing, in my opinion, none of that is true. We simply have some leaders who are bad and have made bad decisions and who talk in ways we don't like. But just take anything dramatic you read about America and divide it by 5, and maybe you would get closer to the truth. Pakistan, as I mentioned before, I'm very honored to be in Pakistan. About 2 years ago, I wrote a column for Bloomberg describing Pakistan as the most underrated economy in the world. I still think that is true. Mostly I'm optimistic on Pakistan. I think the pluses are numerous. The immense talent in this country, the dynamism, the sense of religion, the English language, the history of Pakistan. Pakistan has typically been as wealthy or wealthier than India for long periods of time. So many positives in Pakistan, and I think when I named you the most underrated economy, there's also a sense simply that the reputation of Pakistan is too negative in some quarters. So if I think about this very trip I'm taking, I told numerous of my friends that I'm coming to Pakistan, and this to them was a very strange decision. There was a sense of, well, why would you go there? Some people, and I mean very well-educated people, had a sense if I came here, I might not come back alive, or some horrible fate would befall me. Obviously, that's not the case. I've been going around Karachi. Yesterday, I was going around. compared to the problems that Karachi has had, there is tremendous progress, and I feel very secure here. That's another reason to be optimistic about Pakistan. And I think simply by hanging in the game, as Pakistan has done, you have what has been, not right now, but a natural growth rate of about 4%. And if you just hang in the game, institutional quality will improve, cities will become more livable, there will be more interest from foreign investors, many other benefits. These to me are all quite real. But that said, let me tell you my worries, which are also real. If I compare Pakistan to Bangladesh, as you all know, I think better than I do, for decades, Bangladesh was not considered a serious economic competitor for any part in the world. But we are now at the point where per capita income in Bangladesh is starting to exceed that of Pakistan. Those numbers can be hard to measure, but if you look at life expectancy in Bangladesh is about 72. Life expectancy in Pakistan is about 66. That's a pretty substantial gap. And keep in mind, Bangladesh is the country which for a long period of time was identified as being the poorest, most impoverished country in the world, especially for children. So there's something in Pakistan which seems to be not quite clicking, and that's really the important question to figure out. And I come at this as an outsider, but just to give you, a very quick sense of what I see as some of the issues, tax revenue seems to be a major issue. That tax revenue here is insufficient. But the point is not to raise taxes and take in more money. Taxes are low for a reason. People don't trust the public sector to provide them with the public services they want. So it seems to me there's some kind of political economy set up where there's a great deal of local patronage in Pakistan, and the local patronage is stabilizing in the short run, but the local patronage lowers people's trust in government and makes them unwilling to pay taxes. And you're stuck in this political economy corner that's not very easy to get out of. This is a time in the global economy, there's more chance than ever before to attract foreign money. Pretty much all of Europe, they're charging, negative fees to keep deposits in banks. That's crazy. So there's a surplus of capital. Money is looking to go somewhere. It's not so much yet coming to Pakistan. And that I see as a big part of the problem. Some of that strikes me as governance issues that Bangladesh, starting in the early 1990s, had some very substantial reforms which have stayed in place and are credible. Quality of governance in Bangladesh seems to me not actually that high. But the performance of the Bangladeshi economy, often growing at 8%, sometimes more, shows that if you put in credible reforms, the returns are there, even if you are getting many other issues wrong. Another point I would make, it seems to me the case, just as an outsider, coming from very far away, but Pakistan is very interested in geopolitical issues, and it's a very populous country with a very strong military. But the other forces surrounding it, and here I really mean India, are just too populous and too strong for Pakistan to win too many geopolitical battles. So there's a sense in which Bangladesh is not obsessed with geopolitical battles with India, and a sense in which Pakistan is. And again, just from my outsider's perspective, I suspect, I have some remarks that maybe would be unwelcome to some Pakistanis, but it seems to me this is a losing battle for Pakistan, that trade between India and Pakistan could be much, much higher. It's not just a question of giving Indian goods, most favored nation status, but if you just look at what are personal contacts across India and Pakistan. I have many Indian friends in the United States. I asked them before I went, do you have contacts in Pakistan? Who do you know in Pakistan? Even, have you been to Pakistan? None of them have been to Pakistan, and for no good reason at all. So I'm all in favor of Pakistani increasing trade with China, and the economic corridor. To me, that's fantastic. It's a great driver of growth. But as I see the future here, a lot more of it is going to involve trade mutual investment with the historic partner of India. And it's quite possible that by the year 2050, India is the world's largest economy and not China. That's hard to predict, but India is highly likely to be in the top 3. And the future of Pakistan is probably to develop some kind of much better working relationship with India, as you are now doing with China. And China and also India will drive a lot of your growth. Trade with the US, education in the US, UK, that will continue to be important. But I'm sorry to say, we're not going to help you out on a whole great number of things. We are looking inward right now. We're happy to buy your goods, but even in textiles, to some extent, Bangladesh is outcompeting Pakistan. My sense here still is there's a great amount of promise. I think future growth rates will be much higher than current growth rates. All those factors of the strength of Pakistan I mentioned before, those will only get better. I think you have scale to have more of a startup and a tech sector. And again, English language is a big help. So final problem I see in Pakistan is just a public relations problem. People do not know or understand the beauty of Pakistan, talent of the Pakistani people. They do not get that it is entirely safe to come here, that there is a level of hospitality and charm that perhaps you will not find anywhere else in the world to be superior. And that will only be changed slowly. I can vouch to you all, I will do my best to carry word of Pakistan and its promise and indeed its current level of interest and vitality to the rest of the world. But all these things have to happen a bit at the same time. The better reputation, the better fiscal system, greater trust in government, more provision of public goods, solving some of your water problems, just having the world know Pakistan is a great place to come to and visit or do business in. And there's not any simple formula of, oh, you need to pass these 2 or 3 laws and everything will fall into place. It's a kind of squirrely, snake-like system where you go around a lot of corners and pass a lot of bends and have a lot of obstacles, but you get richer and more trusting, and somehow you get there. And that, I think, the rise of Pakistan will be a major event for the global economy. And I'm very hopeful. So I thank you all again for inviting me to Karachi and coming to listen. And I would just like to express my appreciation for having the opportunity to be someone who can himself, though I am an American, be a positive ambassador for Pakistan. Thank you all.